What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another video from Pink Tourmaline. And this video is about a new book that I just purchased, actually two new books. This one is called Messages from the Masters, and the other book is the original book. I think it's called Master. I can't remember, but it's by the same guy, and it deals. Both of these books deal generally with past life regressions as a method of therapy to resolve issues, to heal past traumas. And again, it's a little bit controversial because it dives into this idea that there are past lives, that there is reincarnation, and that can be a taboo subject for a lot of physicians because that idea doesn't necessarily mesh with people's religious beliefs or a lot of mainstream religions. And so it's a little bit of a tricky area. I think people might want to steer clear of even saying that this is what they believe or what they think is actually happening, and especially for a physician who is in the scientific sphere deeply, to start talking about these types of things that are on the fringes and that could potentially destroy his or her credibility. So I say all this to tell you guys that I am so excited to read this book because this is written by a medical doctor. You can see there, Brian Weiss, MD, who has amazing credentials and who's actually put his reputation on the line to talk openly about past life regressions, and not only talk about them, but talk about how they've done so much amazing work for many of his clients and many of his patients. And ultimately, what this comes back to is helping us get a better understanding of what this life is about in the grand scheme of existence in general. And, that's at the heart of this channel, trying to understand the purpose of life for this individual life. So I am so excited to read this book, and I feel like there's so much credibility that's already part of the entire book and part of this entire story, simply from this guy's credentials and the fact that he's willing to put it on the line to share these stories when it could, and likely did at some point anyways, damage his reputation in academia. And again, I'll say this. I know sometimes people say, well, these guys are just talking about this story or that crazy story to get a big buzz, to sell books, to do all these things. And I humbly disagree with that take, especially in this case where this guy has an established practice and has a reputation, as I mentioned, in academia. To do this is actually a much bigger risk. It could have damaged or completely derailed his career. Forget about selling books and like that. That's more of a fantasy that you could turn this into something like that. So to me, it was he took a big risk by talking about it, and that lends credibility to his stories and accounts. So anyways, we're going to get into the mix, and all we're going to do today is we're going to read the intro, because I haven't even read beyond the introduction. I just started reading it, but I thought I want to make a video and just share what I'm learning with you guys. Again, as I've mentioned on this channel multiple times, I don't mean to put myself out there as any sort of an expert. I'm learning. This channel is going to be an ongoing exploration and learning process for me, and what I learned, I'm going to share with you guys. So anyways, let's get into the mix, and we're going to read this a couple little paragraphs from the introduction, just so you can get an understanding of who this guy is. And as I mentioned, when you hear his story, it lends to the credibility of his story, in my opinion. So check this out. For those of you meeting me for the first time, a few words of introduction are needed. I've come a long way from the fateful day when I, a classically trained physician, professor of psychiatry, confirmed skeptic, and I love that, because I used to be a confirmed skeptic too. I used to be in this exact same boat, thinking anything outside of the sphere of academia was nonsense. If it wasn't being researched at Harvard or Yale, why would it have any credibility? And I've obviously since drastically changed my perspective on that front. I think there's so many, forget about even in this realm, but so many things on this planet that are beneficial or helpful or useful that just aren't being studied or researched at major universities for whatever reason, but they can be truly impactful. So anyways, confirmed skeptic realized that human life is grander and more profound than even my rigorous medical training had led me to believe. Educated as an academic, I received my undergraduate degree from Columbia and medical degree from Yale School of Medicine, where I was also the chief resident in psychiatry. Again, major position of power, went to two incredible schools, Columbia and Yale. All of this to say, not saying that you have to go to these schools to have credibility to speak on these topics. My point, once again, is he took on a huge risk to share these stories with those credentials, because these types of things could absolutely have jeopardized his position or his reputation. I have been on the teaching faculties of several university medical schools, and for 11 years, I served as chairman of the Department of Psychiatry at Mount Sinai in Miami Beach. Excuse me. By the time I first met Catherine, this is his patient in the first book that opened his eyes up to this idea of reincarnation and past lives and past life regressions to treat different psychiatric ailments. The patient story is told in my first book, Many Lives. There's the first book. There it is. Many Lives, Many Bastards. I bought that one too. I'm going to probably read that first, but I just cracked both of them open. I read this one to share it right away. I had published more than 40 scientific papers and book chapters, and I had achieved international recognition in the fields of psychopharmacology and brain chemistry. Not surprisingly, I was completely skeptical of unscientific fields, he puts that in quotes, such as parapsychology. I knew nothing about the concept of past lives or reincarnation, nor did I want to. And then came my sudden and shocking introduction to the spiritual, the right brain, the non-linear. And in fact, I wouldn't even call spirituality non-linear. I think it's part and parcel of, it's all part of the same equation. It's all part of existence and life and what everything is about. So I don't know. I think that maybe the evidentiary standards in some cases of how we're trying to study this or get around this aren't the typical standards, because we're not going to be able to access, I believe anyways, that same type of robust evidence that a lot of times people crave. But it's all we got. We have a lot of stories and tons and tons and tons of accounts that seem to match up and line up. So just because it doesn't, if it's all we got, I think it's worth looking at and listening to and considering. At least that's my perspective, and that's why I'm doing that myself. I knew nothing about the concept of past lives and reincarnation. Okay. And then, mixed up a bit. Catherine inexplicably began recalling what seemed to be past life memories. Somehow, all of her clinical symptoms improved via this regression process. I was amazed, but I was also beginning to find the harmony between science and intuition. This process began 20 years ago, and since then, I have regressed more than 2,000 patients to perinatal, in utero, or past life memories. I've already written 3 books about these experiences, and the books have been translated into nearly 30 languages. Because my work deals with themes of reincarnation, past life regression therapy, and the reunion of soulmates, I've become the unofficial dean of reincarnation. I welcome this characterization because I believe we do reincarnate until we learn our lessons and graduate, coming back to themes that we talk about so many times on this channel. And as I have repeatedly pointed out, there is considerable historical and clinical evidence that reincarnation is a reality. Yo, I can't wait to read this book. But this book, which reflects what I teach my patients and audiences today, is about much more than reincarnation and regression therapy. These are important parts of the puzzle, but there are also other important pieces, and one must know them all and know them well. I've studied healers, mediums, psychics, and others involved in holistic and alternative practices, and I have learned that there are other avenues to one's spiritual awakening. Incredible. Just going back to this last little blurb here, I love this. So he's come from a place of, and again, he's doing the best he can with what he's got in terms of these therapies and regressions, and he's speaking from a result standpoint. These regressions have actually helped tons of people. I mean, I think, to me, that is something worth looking at 100%. And now he's come to this conclusion that he absolutely believes we do reincarnate. And once again, going back to this theme of life and the ultimate purpose primarily being centered around learning. We hear NDEs, people who have had NDEs say over and over, life is a school, we're here to learn. So this obviously theme is, he didn't have an NDE, but through his work, he's saying the same thing. Brilliant. So this is the book that I'm going to be reading next. I cannot wait to share little epiphanies and little fun facts that I find as I read this book. And that's what I'll be doing probably for the next several videos, but I cannot wait. And I just wanted to share this with you guys since I just cracked it open, and I got really excited for all the aforementioned reasons. So that's all I got for you guys today. I can't wait to get into this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.